The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
The mind of Pat Popolizio is a wondrous thing. And for you Pac wrestling fans, you'll get to go inside the mind of the Skip each and every episode here on the Pac Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. Now, here's your host, NC State Director of Athletics Digital Communications, Brian Reinhardt.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Pac Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. I'm your host, NC State Director of Athletics Digital Communications, Brian Reinhardt, and we're switching it up on this episode. The Skip, he's floating around somewhere up here in WB, so we're going to go straight to an interview. And today, I'm joined by 2019 All-American Hayden Hidlay. Hayden, welcome back to the podcast. It's been a long time since we've had you on.
Yeah, it's good to be here, Brian.
Our first post-NCAA championship podcast, and we're going to come in hot. There's been a decision on a lot of people's minds, some recent controversy, and just something most people have wanted to get your opinion on for some time now. Philadelphia Eagles letting Nick Foles sign with the Jaguars. Good move, right move. What do you think?
It's a tough move because I think you lose either way. I think you've got two really great quarterbacks, and there's just not enough room to keep both of them at this point in time. And so you want to hold on to the guy that brought Philadelphia a championship after all these years. And so, I think it's a lot more risky move to keep Foles and let Wentz go than it would be just to keep Wentz. So I have all faith in Carson Wentz. So I'm ready to go, and I support their decisions.
It's good analysis. Now, you told me you've been a huge Eagle fan since right before they won the Super Bowl. So
okay.
But I know you're a big NFL guy. What about college football?
Well, obviously, I root for the Pac. I think growing up, I was big into college football, but I think my Eagles fandom probably began once they lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl all those years ago. I was a big Brian Dawkins fan, and, Donovan McNabb was pretty good too before, he got into some controversies. But, big Eagles fan, big Pac fan. I love it all. I think the fall season is really good because we train really hard, and on the weekends you get to chill out a little bit after you're done working out. And so usually once we're done hitting the track, I'll just kind of go to the sofa and watch football all weekend.
I was going to say, as a student athlete here at NC State on the wrestling team, college football is going on during the preseason of wrestling. How much do you guys get to go over to Carter Finley and watch the Wolfpack on Saturdays before wrestling takes over every weekend?
Well, I would say that we pretty much get every chance to go to the football games September and October for the most part, just because, we're usually done with our preseason workouts by, 11 or so. We can get over to Carter Finley and watch the games. And I know that's big. Whenever we have recruiting weekends, we'll all go there with the incoming recruits, and, they get to see how cool NC State fans are and how loud they get. And I think it's a good sell for them to be able to go to Carter Finley. And, we obviously are at Carter Finley a lot too, running up the stairs during preseason. So I can say I've pretty much explored every single step of that stadium.
A little different perspective running up and down those stairs, I'm sure, than on game days. But more current events, thoughts on WrestleMania?
Well, I didn't get to watch WrestleMania.
It was a long show this year.
Yeah, I know John Cena came out. Yeah. What was he called? The Professor Thugmaster? Thugonomics. Professor of Thugonomics. So that was pretty cool. I don't have any desires to do anything like that. I don't think my body type really suits it. I don't think they're looking for many 5'7" guys since Rey Mysterio has been done. But no, that's pretty cool. I like watching Triple H do his thing. It's kind of cool. I kind of got one of my nicknames from Triple H. People just call me Double H. So I got to respect that. You have a
lot of HH mania, maybe Hulkamania there too. So, a lot of times. But I could talk football and pro wrestling all day, and I know you could talk wrestling all day. So let's get into it. This past season, you repeated as the ACC champion and became only the third wrestler in school history to earn All-American honors as both a freshman and sophomore. Last year, NCAA finalist. This year, fourth place in March. Individually, what were your thoughts on the past season for yourself?
Well, I think it started out up and down. I know the beginning of the year, I wrestled pretty well at the first tournament I went to at the Hokie Open. And then, I went and did the U23 World Championships, and that sort of was a disaster for me almost. I wrestled well, but I didn't come home with anything special. And then coming home from that, I had spent all this time trying to peak for that tournament. And like the next month or so, once I got back, it was like really hard to get back in my groove. And I took a few losses, and, you know, it's weird because, I mean, I went through my whole freshman year, you know, without a blemish. And then next, you know, we're in December and I've got 2 losses already. So I had to really dig deep at that point in time. I think I leaned on my coaches for that support, and, you know, things just weren't clicking. And I wasn't scoring on my feed. You know, my conditioning was fine. That wasn't an issue, but I just wasn't scoring. And, you know, I wasn't looking very good. And that was a time where I needed to kind of take a step back and, you know, let out a deep breath. And, you know, the season's not made in December. It's made in March. So, you know, I just had to keep going with the course that I was on, and I was going to, you know, find some success. And I don't believe I changed up too much. I took a little bit of time off, I think, over that Christmas break. But once I got back from Christmas breaks, things started to click a little bit more, and I started to get back into my groove, and I started to really improve throughout the year. And, you know, I thought I had a really good postseason. I thought wrestling itself, I looked really, really good. It's just, you know, I ran into to a buzzsaw of a bracket, you know, wrestled my hardest, but, you know, I just didn't get the results that were there, and I was really close. I mean, there's a couple just takedowns here and there that could have, you know, been the difference between winning that tournament. But, you know, I know that you can't look back on those type of things and make excuses about it. I mean, I just know I got to get better in order to win that tournament next year.
Covered a lot. I was going to cover all of those points you just made, so good follow. But going back to the start of the season, you and Sean Foz, and before we get started, over under, who weighs more right now, you or Sean?
We actually did do some weight checks, I think, last week, and he is, I think, like maybe 5 or 6 pounds less than I am. So I still have him. There was a point, this is a really funny story. There was a point last year during the summer, I think it was August, and all of our wrestlers from 125 through 157 were all within 5 pounds of each other. So I stayed pretty light and pretty lean throughout the year, just because it's a little bit harder for me to cut weight. I don't lose as much weight compared to, you know, some of the other guys like Sean. Just my frame's not really built for that. So I like to stay lean. I'd probably stay around, you know, 163 throughout the year. And Sean was obviously up in the 50s. Tariq was huge, up in the 50s. You know, the Morris brothers were right around my weight too, and Oliver was a little bit heavier than I was at that point. So we were all within about 5 pounds of each other. So it was a really good training environment. It's going to be somewhat similar right now.
I think Tariq said bulk season is starting now.
Yeah.
They're all trying to catch up to you, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's kind of cool because, you know, you don't usually see those guys in the season. You don't really practice with them. But now that Tariq's a little bit heavier, and it's a good, you know, mesh of training partners, you get a different feel.
Besides that Italy trip with NC State last season, the trip to Romania for U23s, that was your first international trip for wrestling. And off the mat, how was the experience? Did you guys even get to take the time to experience Romania and its culture?
A little bit. My mom went there, and she got to do a lot of touring. It was a very condensed trip just because we were missing classes and stuff like that. It's not the most ideal circumstances because it's right in the middle of November, but my mom got to do a lot of that stuff. And then once I was done wrestling, I got to explore a little bit of Bucharest, and it was really cool. I think I would have liked to maybe, you know, have that trip in the summer, just because it would have been a little bit longer trip. You could maybe go around and see some different stuff like Dracula's Castle, but I didn't get to do that. But my mom took some pictures, and that's what I had to settle for.
And we talked about international wrestling. They really don't care what the college schedule's like. Looking back now, how hard was it for you and Sean? You guys kind of broke up your college season, had to do that, wrestling a different style, had to travel back. You suffered a little bit of an injury too that we really didn't talk about. Just how was that experience in your college season to do that while you weren't redshirting?
Well, looking back on it now, it was probably not for the best for me to be competing. I mean, like that whole trip and getting ready for that tournament didn't really allow me to be all that good in December, which, I mean, in the end, it doesn't matter how great you are in December, but, you know, it was really tough. I mean, we had a plan in place, and I really trusted that. And, you know, we trained freestyle up for like a few weeks beforehand, but, you know, we're here to be college wrestlers, so we didn't get away from folk style either. So, you know, we went through preseason, we're practicing folk style, then probably with a month before Romania, we started, you know, getting back to freestyle, and that transition was pretty hard, I thought. I mean, I don't mind going from folk style to freestyle just because, there's still a lot of neutral wrestling, but then once you go and you prepare all that time to peak for, the U23s and you come back, and you're right in the heart of the season. So, there wasn't a whole lot of time where we could take off. And that was probably an issue for me just because, I hurt my knee when I was out there in Romania in my last match that I wrestled. And so I got back and I was trying to, get ready for the folk style season. And I don't want to say I jumped back into things too quickly. I think I just underestimated how hard it was going to be. And I think, my month of December probably showed that.
You recovered, second ACC championship in as many seasons, and more importantly, an ACC team title as well, in addition to the regular season title. Both of those wins coming up at Virginia Tech. How satisfying was it to win the ACC championship as a team this season?
It was really satisfying just because of, like my season had some ups and downs. We had some peaks and pits as a team. And so for us to be able to win not only the dual championships, but come around and win the overall championship, I mean, that's the goals that we set. Whenever we were having a rough stretch during the season, whenever we dropped that dual meet to pit, we had to really come together and realize what our goals were. And everybody in the room said they wanted to be an ACC dual champion, ACC team champion. So, what we were doing, I don't think lined up with those goals. And I think it took that loss for us to really kind of take a step back and focus on what we need to be doing. And I think that showed a lot about our team in that point in time. And, we knew that we would have a young team this year and we needed guys to step up. And I think we had a lot of guys, kind of break through in that moment and step up as leaders. And we had a really great stretch there. I mean, we beat UNC, Virginia Tech, and then went to ACCs. And, we didn't wrestle like lights out, but I mean, we wrestled good enough to win, obviously. And so that was a really cool stretch to be a part of. I think we grew a lot as a team in that point in time. And, we didn't get the results we were looking for at NCAAs as a team. But, I mean, for how dire some of the things got during the year, I think, it was a pretty solid finish out to the season just because of where we were at one point.
I joked about some controversy to start this podcast. So, of course, now we got to get into the NCAA championships and people just want to hear your opinion. Last year, you got the number 1 overall seed going undefeated. This year, you were 5th. I admit I'm very biased, but I thought that was a little low. And you don't seem like Kobe or Michael Jordan where it takes something to piss you off and you get motivated. But as wrestlers, do you guys care what seed you are? What did you think of yours? Or did you just know it doesn't matter?
Well, I know going into that whole bracket process, in my head, I'm like, all right, I'll probably be the 3 or the 4. I think there's probably a coin flip about what it's going to be. And then I saw the bracket. I'm like, 5. I had not even put that through my thought process. Like you think, I mean, like people always say, like, I don't care what seed I get, but you're thinking about it because, you don't know who you're going to wrestle or things like that. So in my head, I was probably going to be the 3 or the 4, and I was fine with either one of them. And the 5th, I was like, okay, I mean, this is pretty much the same as being the 4 seed. I mean, if you think about it, it really is. So, I'm not like taken back by anything. I kind of figured that would be one of the routes taken as the 4. And once I got to 5, it's similar. So, I don't get mad about that thing. So I thought it was deserving because I didn't have a very consistent season and I didn't really take out anybody that was within the top 5. So at that point, my best win was probably, Romani of Pitt twice and the Ohio State kid. So, I mean, I'm realistic. I knew I didn't have the greatest regular season. I had some opportunities. I had a match against who ended up being the 2 seed, and I dropped that. So, I thought it was pretty fair. I didn't think I got, hosed or anything like that.
And just going right into that semifinal match with Jason Wolf of Penn State, rematch of last year's final. So now that it has happened, do you like instant replay and challenges in college wrestling?
Well, I mean, I'd be lying if I said that kind of whole match didn't play through my head because it does. I mean, every day you think about, all right, what exactly happened? What could I have done more? And I mean, I thought I wrestled lights out in that match. I thought I was doing really well. And even off the first whistle, he got into his best shot and I was able to scramble out of it. And I was like, if I am out scrambling Nolf right now, I mean, I'm going to win this match. And, the first period comes to a close and I'm in on a really good shot. And we get into another scramble again, and I'm kind of out scrambling him, and I'm thinking, all right, if I'm beating him at his best game, then I'm just going to win this match. And, the 5 seconds starts ticking down, and I get behind him on the waist, and I thought I had 2. And then they go to replay, and I think I understand what they called. I think it was, I got behind him, and they gave reaction time for him to get up because, I thought it was a rear standing position, and usually in rear standing, they don't give reaction time. So I'm thinking in my head, all right, I've got 2. But, whenever we started scrambling, I think the ref, thought that we weren't in rear standing, so he allowed reaction time. And so they go to that review process, and I'm just sitting there kind of like standing around. I had a really good first period. I just want to get this match going. And
it was a long review process.
It really was. Too. And in the moment, too, you don't think about how long it was, but I'm sure it was, well over 5 minutes or something like that. And so I'm just waiting, and, I was prepared to hear whatever call it was. And, I think I've had enough maturity over the years to just, I don't want to show anything during the match because if I would have got pissed off that, they didn't give 2, I might have been out of that match just because body language means everything to me. So,
but you still had 2 periods left too.
Yeah, you have 2 periods left. You got to be ready to wrestle a whole match against a guy like that. And so, once they didn't give the 2, I was prepared to win the match either way, just because I was feeling good. I thought that I had the upper hand in that first period, and second period comes around. He timed the shot. I think he had scouted me well, and I went for a high C, and he just split the corner easily. And so, I gave up that too, but I just kept going, and I had some good opportunities to close out that match, but I didn't make it happen. So, I might have got screwed over on a takedown, but I don't feel like I got screwed out of the match. It's a long match. It's 7 minutes, and I had some good opportunities to score, and I thought I wrestled really well, and it just didn't work out like that. And he scored more points than I did. And at the end of the day, he got his hand raised. And, I think it would be cool to run that match back. Everybody has those thoughts. Whenever you lose a match like that, you're thinking, all right, what could I have done? But, I wrestled a really good match, and he just scored more points than I did. And that's kind of the way I look at it.
It was 3-2 in the third. Very late, you got in on a shot 2 right on the edge of the mat. Take us through that sequence. You didn't get that takedown, but that was another very close one.
Well, looking back, obviously hindsight's 2020. I think I should have maybe started my last push a little bit earlier. I think I know cross-country runners, they talk about their last kick that they go on, and sometimes they think about, man, I could have really started a little bit earlier in that. And so I think I started my last kick where I was just kind of going, all out, probably with like 20 seconds left. And, when I look back at that first period takedown, I was probably in on the leg with 30, 35 seconds left. And that's how long it took to take him down. And I probably should have accounted for that more. I think with Nolf, he's really tricky in that once you get to his legs, he can do a lot of different stuff and give you a lot of different feels. But I knew that if I could get to his leg, I thought I was going to score. I was pretty confident in that. It's just, I think looking back, I needed more time just because a guy like that, he's been in those situations. He's comfortable there. I think for my last kick, I should have started around 40, 45 seconds. I think I would have been in enough scoring positions where I could have got it at that point. But, I started my last kick around 20. I got into a leg at 15, and, he was able to kind of hold me out until the buzzer rang.
You talk about starting late, some of your moves. How do you know in a tournament how much time's left? How aware are you of the clocks?
Well, you've got an inner clock in your head. And for me, I think that's one of my strengths. I can keep a clock really well in my head. And obviously there's some stoppages. And every time I go out of bounds, I do check the clock. I think that's a fine thing to do. I never check the clock while I'm wrestling just because one, it shows weakness. And 2, you never know if a guy can catch you, splitting your eye out for a second, and he'll shoot and grab your ankle. So for me, I don't look at the clock during, but I kind of thought in my head I probably had around 20, 25 whenever I took that shot. That was my inner clock said. And then going back and looking at the match, I probably shot in at, 14 or 15. But, it's one of those skill sets that you kind of have to learn as you go on, and I think I've done a good job at that. But, I think the last time I checked the clock, it was probably at like 40 whenever we had a stoppage, and I kind of had that running in my head.
You might get your shot back at him in freestyle this offseason. Does freestyle change the dynamic of this matchup between you two and what has been a good couple of matches at the last two NCAAs?
Well, I don't really know how the freestyle match will go. One, just because you haven't seen him in a few years go freestyle. You don't really know what weight he's going to go. But, I mean, at this point, I know in freestyle, I'm just going to have to win like 5 really hard matches. Because, I mean, by the time trials comes around, it's just going to be all good guys. And so, you know, you don't know if you're going to see him or somebody else. And it's just going to be a really hard fought match, no matter who you're wrestling at this point. But yeah, I mean, obviously I'd love to wrestle him in freestyle. They've been really good matches for me. And, you know, I've been able to solve his kind of code a little bit. I mean, I was the closest match with him for quite some time. And, you know, I feel like it's a good matchup style for me just because I don't give up a whole lot of points no matter who I'm wrestling. And, I usually my defense can prevail against guys like that want to get into a lot of scrambles. And so I think freestyle, it'll be just a lot of fun just because there's a lot more action in freestyle, but looking forward to that if I get to wrestle him.
It's always a quick recovery at the NCAAs. Almost right away, you have to switch your mind onto who's next. And a lot of people were curious how you were going to come out that final day's medal rounds. How long did that loss to no fester in you? And how long did you just go, all right, got to get moving next?
Well, I think it was probably like, I don't know, after I lost, I was, you know, there's a little bit of confusion, there's some rage, and you're thinking like, I mean, if you go to the NCAAs and you record somebody's like 5 minutes after they lose, it's a mess. And so
I don't here's the thing. I don't come and bother you guys for a little while. Yeah, I know other guys come and grab you.
It's right just away. Like the thoughts that go through your head are just so ridiculous. Like, it's just so funny looking back at it now, but usually for me, whenever I lose a match like that, I just go lay down in the back mats and just, I don't know, just lay down and decompress. And usually just tell my coach, just give me 5 minutes and then I'll be fine. And so after that 5 minutes, I'm just, you know, I went and checked my weight for the next day and got some dinner. And I was like, all right, there's nothing left for me to do here. I'm just going to bed. And so I went back to the hotel and just like, I don't want to check my phone or do much at all. I'm just going to bed. And woke up Saturday and I mean, it hurt. My body hurt, but I was just like, all right, I can think about my performance once I'm done with this. You know, I've got 2 matches to win. And after that, I can look back and see where things went wrong. And, Saturday, I mean, I was warming up with Kevin and I'm thinking to myself, wow, my body feels terrible. And Pat comes up to me. He's like, you know, how's it going, man? I'm like, it's going fine. My body just feels like crap. And so, I wrestled that first match and I looked really good, actually. I thought I wrestled phenomenal. And,
you got the win over Deacon of Northwestern, advanced you to the 3rd place match.
Yeah. And that, you know, things were clicking in that match. I mean, I got to the 3rd period. I had a big lead and I went on bottom and then I was thinking he was going to cut me, but I mean, I was like, all right, if he's just going to keep riding me and not really make an attempt to turn, then I guess I'll just wait it out here on bottom. And so I was kind of saving some energy for that next match. And, I mean, I knew in the 3rd and 4th match, it's just going to be a war just because, I mean, every match with me and Pantaleo is just like hard to score, same body type.
I was going to say, is there a better matchup of the same short, just cut guys than you and Pantaleo?
Yeah, I think when it comes to like, I don't know, best statures in the NCAA, I think it's probably me and him are up to the top. And, obviously take a lot of pride in being one of the strongest guys, but I mean, he's really strong too. And so I knew it was just going to be like a, you know, 1 or 2 takedown match. And I went out and in my head, I'm just like, you know what? I don't have anything to lose here. I mean, I don't care if I get 3rd or 4th. I mean, at this point, it's not 1st. So I'm going to try to wrestle the best that I can, but I'm not going to try to wait it out and try to sneak the guy just because, I mean, I was just going to be aggressive and go out and try to, you know, throw him and do whatever. And so went out in the first period, had a good throw attempt, and then
you got close to that headlock.
I did. And, you know, there's some technical things that are tweaking, but I mean, he's just a strong guy. And, you know, if I hit that a couple more times, I mean, if you have that situation play out, I might end up on top in some of those. But I mean, I got a little bit, had some gun fever after that, and I started throwing another headlock, and that one was failed. And so, I put myself down in that point, but I wasn't worried. I mean, I just had to keep going forward and trying to make some shots, and, you know, they just didn't come. And so I I put myself out there. I tried to be, offensive, and just didn't work out at that point. But I mean, I don't think I would feel any different if I got third or I got fourth. So it didn't really matter much to me. I didn't really think over that loss.
Do you ever swear?
Swear? In the practice room, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know after a loss. I don't know. Do you get mad? Do you yell? Do you swear? Or do you just go quiet to yourself?
My go-to is usually take my straps off and lay down somewhere and just put my shirt over my face, just because, I mean, you put yourself through so much emotion. I mean, it's not like I cry or anything. It's just like, I don't need people seeing me like this. And so usually take 5 minutes, lay down, put a shirt over my face. And usually I think your thoughts can kind of come back to you after 5 or 10 minutes. And I think I've been pretty good at that. But I mean, this sport's totally insane if you think about it. So, I mean, if you go into the practice room, don't bring a mic in there.
This was the first year your recruiting class was all in the lineup at the same time. Yourself, Tariq, Daniel, and Thomas Bullard, and Nick Reenan. And it was the number one recruiting class coming out of high school, and all 5 of you guys made it to the NCAAs. And going back to recruiting visits, the redshirt circuit, how rewarding is it that all of you guys are accomplishing this as a group?
It's really cool. I think we haven't really had that signature moment as our recruiting class. And I think guys are ready to make that. I mean, we're still a little bit young this year. I mean, this was the first year that we were all in the lineup together, and we had to form a little bit of a new identity with all those guys, leaving. And, I think we did well to taking that first step. Our NCAA performance didn't really show that, but I think we took a big step this year as when it comes to leadership and who needs to step up and everybody's roles. And so I think next year is the year where we get to combine a little bit of our experience now. There's no excuse for us to not be experienced. We're juniors and we've had time on the mat. We've all been starters. And so there's no excuses to why we can't make something happen at the end of the year. And the way I look at it, it's very similar to my redshirt freshman year. We had the year before, we didn't have a great NCAA performance. We had one All-American, which was Kevin, and they finished 16th or 17th. And the next year they came back with a vengeance, and we had, 4 or 5 All-Americans. And so I think we're ready to take that next step this year. I think we've got a combination of my brother's recruiting class who are hungry and they want to prove themselves. And then we have guys that are experienced and feel like they have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. I think once those two mesh, I think we can be a really dangerous team. And I'm looking forward to seeing that, happen next year.
Care to start any rumors, any movement in weight classes for you?
No, no. I'm a very good size 157.
Career 157?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I might be a little bit light for my weight class, but I'm the strongest guy, so I don't worry about weight a whole lot, and so 157 is good for me.
And moving into the off season, it's already been a couple weeks since the NCAAs. What does your spring and summer look like in freestyle? Well,
last year when I came off of NCAAs, I had a really good year last year in terms of I didn't face a whole lot of adversity. And so I just worked super hard and did everything right. And then I got second, and then I came back the next day. I'm like, all right, let's just go to freestyle and let's do this thing. And so I didn't realize the kind of toll that a season will take on your body. And so, I maybe took 2 or 3 days off and was back in the room getting ready for the US Open. Because at that point I hadn't qualified for trials, and I was like, all right, I lost at NCAAs. I might as well make a world team. And so I just went right back into it. And I got to a point where I was maybe 5 days out of the US Open. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to go there, because I was like, I spent 3 or 4 weeks training and it was awful. I looked terrible. I got out of NCAAs and thought that everything was just going to click the way it did. And, I go into practice and my body starts hurting. I start getting some some aches around my body, and my wrestling looked terrible. I was getting beat in the room all the time. And I was sitting down with the coach and I'm like, man, do I even want to do this? I feel like I just put myself, through too much this past few weeks. And I don't want to go out there and get embarrassed in Vegas. And the coaches were they were almost at the point where yeah, I don't think you should really do that. Just try to focus on U23s. But, I talked to my dad, and he's thinking, he tells me, you're a lot better than you think you are. And, all your life you've just ran right to the challenge. And so you just got to go out and do it. And so I went to the Open, and I mean, I looked pretty good. I got second, and I got a lot of good experience from that, and then turned around and went to the trials, turned around, went to U23s. And so at that point, I was totally cooked. I think in that 3-match series against Deacon, the fact that I was able to pull through in that match 3, I don't know. That was not technique. There was not skill involved. It was just pretty much just grit. And I just didn't want to do all this work that off season to lose there. And so this year I'm in a little bit different position. I've qualified for the trials. And so, I mean, I don't want to go to the Open again. I don't want to put myself through that like what I did last year. And so right now I'm just, I'm getting back into things. I'm not going crazy, kind of like I have been in the past. I'm just trying to peak for the World Team Trials. And so that's a really cool feeling to have, because I felt like last year I was a little bit rushed in my preparation. You spend all these months doing folk style, and then you go to the Open, and these guys have been wrestling freestyle for years. And so, I mean, it was a tough challenge for last year, but I learned a lot. And, I feel like I'm in a better spot this year to peak at trials.
And like you said, you've already qualified for the World Team Trials because you were on the U23 World Team. And growing up in Pennsylvania and just all of your USA wrestling experience prior to now, how big of a deal is it for Reynolds Coliseum to be hosting the World Team Trials in May?
It's really cool. I think growing up in Pennsylvania, I mean, wrestling's all year round sport. No matter where you go in each month, there's always going to be tournaments everywhere. And I think with Raleigh hosting, I think that's a big step for our program. And just being able to showcase that, yeah, we're a really great wrestling environment. And if we get a good turnout, they might consider us for an NCAA championships in the future. And we all know Reynolds is just top of the notch. And I think it'll be a really great host. And I think guys are going to be surprised. I think you're going to get guys from the Midwest that are going to come down here and be like, wow, we should have been doing this a long time ago. And, I think Raleigh is just a beautiful area. And I'm really looking forward to having a little bit of a home crowd advantage. And, at the end of the day, you're going to be wrestling guys that are doing this professionally and have been wrestling freestyle. And so, I'm going to have to bring a really good game to beat those guys, but it's going to be really cool being in Reynolds.
I've asked a lot of our guests this past season to give us a scouting report on some of the freshmen that redshirted and that they've worked with in the practice room. You have a 20-year scouting report on your brother Trent. Big birthday shout out there. But
Yep.
Tell our fans, what can they expect seeing Trent next season? What type of wrestler, what type of style will Wolfpack fans see from him this year?
I think you're going to see a different style. I think the two of us, a lot of people want to compare us just because, we wrestle similarly and, we both like to be out of underhooks, but personality-wise, it very far ends of the spectrum. I think just he's much more outgoing, I would say, and has a great sense of humor and is not really afraid to let his personality show. And me, I would say I have a much more dry sense of humor, and I like my privacy for the most part. But I think you'll see that in his wrestling. He brings a lot of emotion to the mat, and when he wins, you're going to see some great celebrations. You're going to see a lot of fiery competitive attitude, and I think people love that. I think we both train the same way and we both work the same way. It's just how we are and how we've come to be. But I think you're going to see a lot of explosion, a lot of athleticism, some that I wish I had. I think growing up, he was 2 years younger than me, and I was always able to kind of, big brother him in most things. But in terms of overall athleticism, he's got me beat. So I've had to change my game over the past few years just to be able to beat him. But
when was the last time you two went live?
I want to say it was probably last summer. During my summers, it's weird because during the season, you're pretty much wrestling 49, 57, or 65 guys. But during the summer, I don't really care too much. I like to wrestle the bigger guys. And so whenever he first got on campus, I probably wrestled him, a few times during live goes. And, I'm able to kind of beat him in ways that, nobody else can, just because I know his wrestling really well, and I'm able to, pick and choose the battles that I want to fight with him. But I don't have any desire to wrestle him now. I think with his weight advantage and his added strength throughout this redshirt year, no, I'll pass. If we're two if we're the only two ones left in the room and they need partners, I'll take somebody else.
I was going to say, not even here at NC State, but when did you have that oh crap moment where he might be younger than me, but he's not a little brother anymore?
Well, he's got this great takedown where he can kind of go out from the open and just kind of explode right through you. And I mean, I always know it's coming, but I think one time in high school, I had defended that. And then next thing you know, he went to his next offense and just kind of skied me through the air and put me down. And I was like, oh, all right, this isn't how I thought it was going to go. And then I think this fall when we were drilling, it was like an off day and we came in and we're drilling with each other. And, he got one of his attacks and he didn't realize his weight that he had on me and he put me to the ground. And I just, the wind went right out of me. And then he looked at me. He's like, oh man, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that was that big. And so whenever we drill together now, it's usually more of like a spar, like where he's given some kind of percentage and I'm using my weight just because, there's a big disadvantage now in terms of that.
What's it? You have 30 pounds on you right now?
Yeah, probably 30.
And I'll get you out of here in this. I saw it advertised this weekend. You're going to go help a free clinic in Greensboro. How much fun do you have working those kind of events in the NC State summer camps, interacting with kids? They all know who you are now.
Yeah, it's really cool that they know who I am. And obviously it's not always been like that. I think when I first came to NC State and I was working that summer camp, I remember the little kids just got on me just because they didn't know who I was. And I was just like one of the red shirts. And like those little kids can be ruthless sometimes. And I can specifically remember these kids just like untying my shoelaces all the time. And it just used to drive me absolutely nuts. And, these kids would get in like groups of 5 or 6 and just jump on my back. And at that point, there's not much you can do. And it's not like you're going to, go full torque on a bunch of like 10-year-old kids. And then, the funny thing is, the next summer I come in to run these camps, not one kid is screwing with me after they, kind of know my name. And I love working with kids and, I might be a little bit more quiet, but I feel like I'm a really good teacher and I like going around North Carolina and spreading the word about wrestling just because there's so much untapped potential here. It's not a powerhouse wrestling state, but there's just so many good athletes here. And I want to be the guy to kind of spread it around. And I know we've had really good guys on our team that have served that role, especially guys like Mock who, have shown that, North Carolina wrestlers can reach the top of the podium and the highest pinnacle in the sport. And so, for me, I'm always willing to give my time and on the weekends and whenever I have some time off. I have a good relationship with Dark Horse Wrestling Club in Charlotte. And so I'm there quite a bit and I've got to form relationships with those kids and their parents. And it's an awesome setup here in North Carolina. It's growing, very rapidly. And, I think NC State's been a big part of that. And so I'm glad to be a part of that too.
Two very different styles when it comes to camp counselor. Who's better, you or Renan?
Renan knows how to implement scare tactics in kids. He tries to make himself out to be more mean of a person than he actually is. I think for the guys that know Renan, we know that deep down he wants best for everybody. He keeps a very jagged appearance on the outside, and it's just I think that's his sense of humor, and it's funny to see him work with kids just because. The first moment that he starts yelling around to get the drill started, these kids just look at him like a deer in the headlights and they just start sprinting to do whatever he says. And it's like, for the rest of us, we just look at it and laugh just because we know that they have no idea about this guy.
Hayden is glad, great to catch up with you after a workout. In season's always exciting, but the World Team Trials only a few weeks away in Reynolds. A lot of people going to be watching. Good luck to you and all of your teammates as you guys go in this next freestyle.
Thanks so much, Brian. Thank you for having me on.
And I want to thank everybody for listening today. This is your Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast covering all things NC State wrestling. Until next time, Wolfpack wrestling fans, go Pack.
The Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast is produced by the Mat Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, go to MatTalkOnline.com.